Hey guys, welcome back. I just got through climbing. I'm about to go through some of the recovery workout. So yesterday was the really big developmental session. So I did a lot of work on the track, a lot of work in the weight room, taking each set to failure. And so that way, again, trying to stimulate the hormone release, kind of create the hydrogen ions, different things like that, because we're trying to get the biological adaptations we're looking for. So in this case, with that, I'm looking for hypertrophy, hyperplasia in the fast twitch muscles. So in the glycolytic muscle. So I want to be able to do the really high intense work. I need that for sprinting. I need that for some of the moves on the climbing wall. And again, most of the climbing I do is very short. So not that many moves, so that's kind of where I want to be. That doesn't mean I don't want any oxidative capacity though at all. Um, so what that's referring to, there's different ways to classify muscles. You can classify them fast twitch, slow twitch. People are kind of used to that. Um, but then oxidative and glycolytic is another way. So if they're oxidative, they have more mitochondria, they can use oxygen well, and that if there are more mitochondria and it can use oxygen very well, then a lot of times it can kind of get rid of those reactive oxygen species and byproducts from energy production, the hydrogen ions, et cetera, that end up decreasing performance. Now, if the muscles are glycolytic, they don't have as much of that, mitochondria, as much of the oxygen. They can't use it as well. They have to go through some burning of glycogen. So that's where you get the glycolytic from. But that leads to more byproducts. So you can't go for very long at that rate before you start to get slower, for instance. So like in a sprint, um, you go up to a point and then you start to decrease speed, and that's when those byproducts are getting more and more pronounced and your body can't deal with them. So you can have, according to Dr. Sulyanov and Nasedkin and other people, you can actually have fast twitch muscles that do have some oxidative capacity. They'll never have the same oxidative capacity as a slow twitch muscle, but they can have more oxidative capacity than what they had if you train that way. So that's where I'm kind of trying to balance things. I definitely want those kind of higher output muscle fibers more so than the slow twitch fibers for what I do. For other people, they'll want a combination of both of those, and where the balance is between slow twitch, fast twitch, oxidative, glycolytic could be here, depending on sport, goals, etc. So now what I'm trying to do with this recovery session is to kind of restore some of the mitochondria, get more mitochondria in those glycolytic muscles so they will have a little bit more of an oxidative capacity. If I can do that, that means that I should be able to kind of go faster or a little bit longer before breaking that threshold to where those end products or byproducts are produced that end up decreasing speed, decreasing performance. And so that means we have to have a way to train fast twitch fibers without increasing like lactate and hydrogen ions and different things like that that again destroy the mitochondria. And so that's where those heavy resistance bike rides come in, and that pause is so important. So the heavy resistance, you're having to push real hard, so that gets those fast twitch muscle fibers. But then you've got that pause and relaxation, so you're not just kind of going continuously. If you did, it wouldn't be long before hydrogen ions, lactate, and everything, and that burn is there. So we're trying to avoid that. And so then push with the other leg, pause, push, pause. That way we can keep doing this continuous motion to get some kind of aerobic benefit in a sense. And so that lets us it gets my heart rate up there, but I'm trying to keep it underneath that anaerobic threshold. That's kind of that point where those byproducts start getting produced and you have problems. And according to Soluyanov and other people, and I agree with this, and this is where I think a lot of research in the US is kind of missing the boat. Um, a lot of times with different things, with most sports, the problem is more so at the local level, not the heart cardiorespiratory level. With any sport, hiking or anything, yes, you're going to breathe hard, your heart rate's going to go up. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but the limiting factor in most sports is actually not that. For people that are, running like middle distance and stuff, it's that local in the legs, that burning and stuff that kind of limits them from going further at that speed. So now some sports like cross country skiing, things where you got like pretty much every muscle in the body working, that then the cardiorespiratory system can be the limiting factor. And so then you're going to want to train that. Plus, you're going to want everything going at the local level for the muscles that are being used to try to build that up. And so there's different things where I've heard Dr. Salutinov talk about working like with a kayaker or somebody who was rowing, and that was the problem. They kept trying to do like this kind of longer distance stuff, so it kept them in that, like, kind of past that anaerobic threshold, and the person never got better. But by staying underneath the anaerobic threshold and working there, they would kind of build some things up, get the biological adaptations they were looking for, getting some oxidative capacity in the glycolytic fibers, more glycolytic fibers or bigger glycolytic fibers with more mitochondria. That was able to kind of raise that anaerobic threshold up, and then that person became master of sport. Which is part of the classification in the Russian system. So that'd be like international level, Olympic level, athlete. So that's kind of some of the background for some of this. So it's a different way of looking at things, like I said, different way of kind of classifying muscle fibers, different type of training. What I was kind of saying earlier, I do think in the US, all of the research, or the vast majority of it, been focused more on the cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory system. And again, I just don't think for most things that's the limiting factor for most sports. Again, there are going to be some that are, but they're definitely using just about every muscle in your body. Even for like running, I think it's more at the local level. And sometimes what people are trying to do, they're kind of trying to keep their heart rate up and go longer just so they can kind of build a tolerance to lactate, is what you'll hear a lot of times. And I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think it's better to try to raise that anaerobic threshold, because now you can go faster and longer before you get to that breaking point. And I think that's going to lead to much better results. So again, some of the background for you guys. So what I'm going to do today, I'll do the heavy resistance bike rides. I've already walked a little bit too before climbing, kind of served as a warm up. I do like doing the cardiac output every day just to get some of that stretch hypertrophy in the heart. I do think that's a good thing just for overall health. And so with the bike rides, I'll do 2 sets of 10 minutes. My heart rate should be between 130 and 150 when I'm doing that. For most people, anaerobic threshold, according to heart rate, is probably going to be somewhere between 150 and 160. Now, that can be a little bit different sometimes when you're doing like upper body stuff. The heart rate might be higher, but you're there, or, so you just kind of keep in mind. So again, the key thing with this is not so much the heart rate, but making sure I don't get that burn and build up of things in the legs. That's why I need that relaxation phase. And then I also want this to help out with climbing. That's part of the reason why I do a lot of back workout, or did a lot of back exercises yesterday along with the lower body. So I will do kind of something for climbing where I can get a little bit of the grip and then the back, and same kind of idea as the bike, where it'll be kind of heavy to kind of pull and have it relax, do the other arm, relax, and kind of keep going like that. And for that, I'll do 1 set of 10 minutes. When I did that before, still my heart rate was in that 130 to 150 range. So anyway, I won't film the bike rides. I will film the other part for climbing and kind of post that as a separate video for climbing too, because it's something different. I haven't seen anybody else talk about it or try it, not in regards to climbing. So I'm not saying it's going to be the best way. It's just what I've come up with. And so I will experiment with it and see what happens. But I hope you guys enjoyed getting some of this background. I don't think, just training for these biological adaptations means you throw out all other training principles or anything. It's just a different way of looking at things. And then you can kind of have this overriding principle or guidelines, but then you can bring in some things like motor learning and other stuff. Because, like with sprinting, I'm not going to not sprint. I still have to learn those positions, learn how to move, still have to do those things and acquire that skill just like with sports, you wouldn't stop playing a sport and just do this. You still have to get all those sport skills that you need. So it's just something else, another way of kind of looking at things, and that can be added in. And that way you can kind of see where maybe some of your weaknesses are and have a different way of addressing those. Especially, it might be a little bit different way than what most people would do. Because again, I get the idea of, okay, well, if we're hitting this lactic area and then people are falling off, let's keep them there so they get used to it and get better at it. That makes some intuitive sense. But if there is a way to bring that level up before they get there, then that's going to give us better results. Because again, now you can go longer, faster before you get to that point. That's going to have a much bigger improvement with performance. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.